Welcome to Topless Talks with Nova. This is your host, Nova Gracie.
Well, hello there. It has been another week, guys. We made it. We survived another 7 days. I'm so proud of us. It's been a hell of a week, I'll tell you that. It's been one hell of a fucking week. Oh my god, my energy levels have just been non-existent. And my personal life has been popping off like always. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're going to have a really fun episode today. We're going to talk about mental health. I know, it's a trigger for some people. But first, happy 4th of July! Yay! Happy 4th, guys. I'm not doing anything because I think that fireworks are bad for the environment. Therefore, I will not be participating. I might, participate in some alcohol, but I will not be seeing any fireworks. I don't judge people who do. Don't get me wrong. But I personally don't like them. So yeah, I hope whatever you end up doing turns out to be a total blast. Sorry, I was literally just playing with my nipple for a second. Oh man, if you're not video, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Anyway. So, and with 4th of July, I know that we all love to have a good time and get drunk and fucking explode some shit, but let's just be mindful of people in your neighborhood that maybe are veterans or have PTSD or are animals. So I'm not saying don't do it at all. I'm just saying, be mindful of that. So, but regardless, happy Independence Day. We're independent from the Brits since 1776. Woo! Yay. Anyway, so it's a mental health day. I know I say that, and everyone probably starts huffing and puffing and rolls their eyes and like, oh, really? It's going to be one of those episodes. Yeah, it is. It is. Mainly because of that exactly. I think that because there's such a stigma around it, that it is officially my goal in life to end that stigma. And that starts with this podcast episode right here. No, but for real, I know you hear people be like, oh yeah, mental health. It's not all about mental illnesses or, talking about your feeling. That's obviously those are aspects of it. But I just think that everyone can benefit from just being a little bit more self-aware, because our mental health, the health of our brain, of our emotional health, affects everything in our life. That goes for obviously emotional health, duh, but also physical health, our relationships, how we interact with the world, how we interact with ourselves. All of these things are so fucking important to live a human life, and it's important to know how to navigate, because life is so up and down and turning around and loop-de-loop. It's insane, and this last year has taught me that for sure. But despite that, we need to know how to handle that. We need the tools to be able to navigate life even when it's fucking flipped on its head So that's kind of what we're talking about today. So buckle up, babes. I hope you're ready. I'm gonna be yapping a lot. So I know I was like I said, mental health affects all of these things. Um, Poor mental health, and like not a lot of people know this, poor mental health literally manifests physically. So like people who have PTSD and other things of that nature, depression, anxiety, things like that, they're more likely to have autoimmune disorders. And it's often looked over the effect that being on constant like high alert, like how that affects our bodies and our brains and like our hormones. um so yeah, it like literally stress shows up physically on our bodies, and that could even just be like loss of appetite, hair loss, lack of sleep, um just poor mood. um all of those things can come from poor mental health, you know, and all of those things can cause poor mental health as well. So, um, also our relationships. Um, if we're in a bad place, which it's okay to be in a bad place, it's okay to like need help, you know, but when we're not in our best like state of mind, we're not communicating in our best state of mind, and we're not interacting with our loved ones from our best state of mind. And that might not always be like, you know, that might not always show up as like screaming, yelling, cussing, but it could also show up as neglect or indifference or, you know, just not giving a fuck. And that affects your relationships, you know. So it's really important to like work on yourself and voicing your needs, defining your own boundaries. These are all things that I'll talk about. So yeah. So obviously mental health is fucking important. And I know every time I say that, you guys probably cringe, you know? I get it. I get it. Cause like the media and the news and fucking people on like social media have kind of warped the phrase mental health and like turned it into something weird. It still kind of means the same thing as what it's supposed to mean, but I don't know, like there's like an undertone of something there that's not supposed to be. But I want to just stomp on that and get rid of that, because we take care of ourselves, you know? We take care of ourselves around here. I accept nothing less, especially if you're rocking with me. I'll accept nothing less, you know? Oh, man. And of course, you know, being a cam girl, there's kind of like a whole different set of challenges. Everyone has their own unique set of challenges that they face in life every day, day to day. Um, people in people in the sex industry kind of have their own like unique set of challenges, and it can be exhausting. Um, like the stigma, first of all, of being in the industry, um, not knowing who's judging you or who's going to accept you, or and even professional stigma like the banks you can use, or lying on an apartment um, application, things like that, you know, like we have to navigate these kinds of things. um Also, you know, not even to mention romantic relationships. Like even before I was a cam girl, even before I was ever in the sex industry, I dealt with men wanting to be with me simply because of the way I look, and almost being like a trophy for them, quote unquote trophy. It was almost as if they wanted the idea of me more than they wanted the reality of me. And even to this day, I struggle with that. I struggle with identifying the difference because, people are really good at lying. People are such magnificent manipulators, you know? Hats off to some people because that shit is hard. I'm a terrible liar, so whatever. So, with all of this information, what do you do about it? Like, what if you know nothing about mental health, um, ways to combat certain things or feelings or whatever? Where do you start? I think that first, it's important to be able to identify how you're feeling, because it's kind of harder than you might think. Because you might feel something and it almost feels like something else, you know? Identifying the way you're feeling is a skill that I think everyone should learn. And it sounds silly. It sounds silly being like, oh, I am sad, I am angry, but putting a label to it rather than like just completely embodying that helps you realize that it is just a feeling, and feelings are fleeting. Emotions are fleeting. They come and they go. So even just putting a name on it like that can help tremendously in helping, like, leading it on its way out the door, because we don't need to stay in sadness forever. We don't need to stay in anger forever. It's hard not to. It's easy to just succumb to it, but that's not what life is about. Life is all about all of these little moments that we live. I'm getting getting off track. So identify how you're feeling. Huge. Huge. Not only identify how you're feeling, but on top of that, you need to also identify why you are feeling that way. And I don't necessarily mean that you need to like point fingers at someone and be like, oh, like they did this and that's why I'm upset. They did that and I'm upset because they did this. While yes, people do shitty things, there's no getting away from that. They do shitty things. But it's up to us how we react to that. And it's up to us how much we let that affect us and how we perceive it. We can feel however we want to feel about literally any situation. I can break my leg tomorrow and normally, yeah, I'd feel sad about it or upset or angry or whatever. Or, and this is just like a crazy example, but maybe I'm excited that now I don't have to work. I get to take this time off, even though my leg's broken. I'm happy. And that's just kind of an extreme example of like, we are literally in control of our feelings. Like, we control the narrative. So it's good to identify why we're feeling a certain way, because then it kind of gives us a chance to maybe change that why. Kind of like morph it into whatever we want, into whatever emotion that actually serves us. And that's the beauty of life, is like, we can get excited about infuriating things. We can be excited about really sad things. And that's the beauty of life. It's like, we don't have to feel any kind of way. And it's easy to forget that, Anyway, I'm getting off track again. So, once you have identified why you are feeling whatever way, then it starts the nitty-gritty stuff. Then you can start voicing your needs to people. Like if you need more support from your friends, or if you need more space from your friends, or if you need to have a deep talk with your husband, or you need to sit down and talk to your child, or whatever, you need to communicate what you need. And it's a lot harder than it seems because, like we all have past with our people, and once you have a bad experience with voicing the way you feel, it's easy to just assume that every experience is going to be that way. And I'm personally guilty of this. I've been in several abusive relationships, and that has caused me to kind of, instead of communicating how I feel, just kind of self isolate, and I go into my shell, and I would rather just deal with everything by myself and fuck everyone else. And while a part of me is like, yeah, like that, you need to rely on yourself, the main part of me realizes that that is harmful for myself and for my relationships. I want to feel more intimate. I want to feel more close. I want to feel more in tune with myself and my relationships. And if I'm self isolating, then I'm doing the opposite of all of that. So, while it's hard and it hurts and it's scary, it's so much better just to like be honest. And that kind of goes into like the next point is like living in your truest self, which I could literally go on for days about this. Being so unapologetically yourself that it makes people uncomfortable. I cannot stress that enough. That is the only way that you are going to attract the people that you want in your fucking life. I went so long of my life being a people pleaser and acting a certain way so that people would like me, you know? Um, and it wasn't until I was, I don't know, 24, 25, that I realized I was like, I am not happy. Like I am surrounded by people, but none of them really know me. I can't be myself around any of them. They know a very toxic version of myself. They know a mask. Um, and so once I started living in my true self, and like obviously, like I still have tendencies where, like, say I have a crush on someone, I, like just little things. I'll kind of like do a certain thing, or like I'll act a certain way around them that I wouldn't normally do. And I notice it and I hate that. But when it comes to like living generally in my life, I am my most authentic self, like the person that you see right now, like that's me. So like living in your most true self, it is the most freeing and liberating thing. And you might not accept yourself at first, like there will be resistance. But once you finally just like come to that realization and like let loose, like you will be so much happier. Stop worrying about what people think of you. Stop worrying about what you look like. Stop worrying about what you sound like, or like stop fucking caring, because you are missing out on so much in your life just out of the fear of what people might think or what you might look like or whatever. Anyway, next point kind of plays into my last point is if someone doesn't align with you, if someone is no longer in alignment with your morals or your values or your lifestyle, it's okay to walk away. It's hard. It's hard. And I think that the hardest thing for people is like we like to hold on to like the best in people, you know? We like to really hold on to like the memories and like the great times that we had with someone. And while yeah, like it's so important to like remember like the good times, but it might also be holding you back, you know? It's okay to like walk away from someone who's no longer aligned with you. It's tough because it's the decision between wanting to fight for the friendship or relationship or whatever and wanting to fight for yourself, you know? And I think that it should always be for yourself. Always. Um while I'm a lover and I'll always like tell people to fight for love, like I also, on the flip side, don't think that anyone should compromise themselves for another person. You know, I'm a huge lover, and I think like I have so much love to give. I have so much love to give, and but despite that, I'm not going to give it to someone who doesn't deserve it. I'm not going to give it to someone who takes advantage of it. I'm not going to give it to someone who doesn't give it back, you know, in the way that I need. Um, and that kind of plays into voicing your needs. And also defining your boundaries, which is such a hard thing. Such a hard thing. Such a hard thing. And we're kind of like ingrained from a really, really young age to ignore our boundaries and pretend that they don't matter. And like you the clearest example that I have of that is a child. This is one of the first examples that we ever experience of having to ignore our boundaries is a child goes and sees family, and the family one like say grandpa wants a hug. The toddler doesn't want a hug, but the grandpa forces the hug, and the mom's like, oh well, it's your grandpa, you gotta hug him anyway. That is just setting them up, showing them that their needs and their boundaries don't matter. And that's just like one small example of like ways that it's like literally ingrained in our society to people please and ignore ourselves and betray ourselves. Um so defining boundaries and enforcing boundaries is so fucking hard. Telling people that you need space, telling people what you need out of a relationship, and even just being honest with yourself about what you need out of a relationship, what you need out of a friendship. These things are so hard, but all it does is it takes being honest and facing kind of like the darkest parts of yourself, you know, because there's no way to know what you need without facing what you are, you know? Whew. Anyway, so like that's all really heavy shit, you know? It's really heavy shit. So, what are some things that you can do to help improve all of this? Help improve your life, help improve your mental, help improve, you know, just life in general. I do have a list of tips. You might not like some of them. So, the first and, you know, one of the best, I think, find ways to release your emotions. So like we went over identifying what they are. We went over identifying why they are. Now we need to let ourselves exist within them, you know? Let ourselves feel that anger, feel that sadness, you know? What does it feel like inside of you? Where do you feel it? Is it in your chest, in your stomach? Like, does it raise your heart rate? Does it raise your body temp? Like, pay attention to what that emotion does physically. Um, and then feel it, you know, just like let it run its course. And sometimes, especially with like anger and you know, it's hard because it feels never ending. It feels never ending. In times like that, you need to find ways to release those emotions. Crying is a great way. Crying's a fucking fantastic way of releasing all number of emotions. Beating something up, kickboxing class. It does cost money though, so that might be a little bit of a barrier for some people. Um, Punching a pillow though is free. It is. Screaming into a pillow. That's one of my favorites too. Bitch, I be screaming bloody murder into my pillows. I be saying things that I would never repeat to another person. But I want to, you know. It's just good to let those things out. You know, you don't want to bottle up anger or depression, or you don't want to bottle those things up because it, like I said earlier, it manifests physically, and you will be making like irreparable changes to your brain and your body, and we don't want that. You know, we want to stay as light and feathery and, you know, just bubbly as possible. We don't want to be heavy, we want to be light, you know. Another thing, a very very important thing, stay connected with your friends. You don't necessarily have to talk about what's going on in your life. You don't have to talk about what's bothering you. You don't have to talk about like the big heavy shit that that's going on. But just having someone that you know has your back. Having someone there that you can just shoot the shit with, joke around with, have a distraction, you know, just like someone you can talk to, be yourself with. It's so fucking important. Like, I think that's a big thing that is severely lacking in our society is like a sense of community. And I think that's why social media is like so big, is because like that's the only sense of community that we have. It's the only sense of like togetherness that we have. And like look how toxic it is and look how like separated we are on it, you know? So I think staying connected with your friends, and also like finding hobbies and like finding groups of people that like you do those hobbies with, that's a great sense of community, you know. um like a group or a class, or you know, like I crochet, so like a crochet class or a kickboxing class like I was saying, or you know, just like things like that that give you a sense that you're not alone, because it's so easy to feel so alone in this fucking society, you know. The next thing, you're gonna fucking roll your eyes and be so annoyed with me, but exercise and eating right. I know. I know. That's what everyone fucking says, but it's true. You don't necessarily have to like go insane in the gym. You don't even have to go to a gym. Simply moving your body, moving your joints, your muscles, getting your heart rate up, breaking a sweat. It releases endorphins in your body. It literally makes you happy. It's meant to do that. The hardest part about exercising is physically starting. Once you like get going, at least for me, once I get going, like I feel great. I'm good. I'm ready to fucking go. It's walking out the door, physically going to the gym and getting started is the hardest part. And of course, like the diet thing. I know you're probably hearing it from 18 different directions every single fucking day, but we really are putting such shitty things into our bodies every single day. And it's laughable if you don't think that that has like a direct effect on the way our brain works and the way our body works. You know, like these things are like, this is more than just a flesh tomb, you know, like this is literally, this body is how we are alive, you know, it is so miraculous, but we have to take care of it, you know, and like physically, mentally, all of it, it takes work. We have to invest in ourselves, you know? So again, being your true self, being as true to yourself as you fucking can. And that includes voicing your needs, enforcing your boundaries, you know, doing things that make you happy, pursuing hobbies that bring you joy, maybe learning something new. These are such important things, you know, finding your sense of self and like holding on to that desperately, because that's the only thing that's going to get us through is ourselves, you know? That's something that I've learned in the last year is like, it doesn't matter what people say, it doesn't matter what people do. You are literally the only one that's got your back. You are going to be the one that's there at the end. You are going to have to be the one that faces the decisions that you are making right now every day. There's not going to be anyone else that takes the fall for that. That's solely on you. And so you have to operate in a way that you're proud of and that you can get on board with and that you can stand in. You need, every decision you make, you need to stand on that. Everything you say, you need to stand on that, you know, because that improves the relationship that you have with yourself. It builds the trust that you have with yourself. When you say something, mean it. You know, stand on business, bitch. Say it with your fucking chest. Because I do. I don't say anything where I like later on, I'm like, oh, you know, I didn't mean that. No. Everything I say with my fucking chest. I stand on that business. Because me, I am my true self. And I'm going to stay my true self. And I'm not going to let anyone try to make me be less or anything different or try to, you know, tarnish that in any way. So, and I think it's important for everyone to kind of like have that, like such a strong sense of self. You know, it's like step number one. You know, I don't think that it's really possible to have a extremely healthy relationship with someone without first having that strong sense of self. So, um, anyway, last thing, and this is actually really important, last but not least, is making time. And I mean making time, because if we just kind of wait for it to happen, it will never happen. Making time for rest. I know bills and, you know, fucking life. It doesn't work. You know, we have so much to do and we only have 24 hours on a day to do it. We have to keep up with work and personal hygiene and the house and the kids or whatever you have, whatever you've got going on. It's a lot. So you have to make time for rest. Schedule it, because if you don't, your body will force you. You'll get sick or you'll just be exhausted. And I've experienced that firsthand. If you don't make time for rest, your body will make it for you in the form of a sickness or an illness or a chronic illness, you know? So that's really why resting and like not just like taking a break from work, but true resting, you know, truly resting mentally as well. Because, you know, I can't tell you how many times I took a rest day where I took a day off and the whole time I was just like, oh my God, like just the guilt that I feel that I'm not being productive, that I'm not doing anything. And that's the fucking hustle culture. Fuck hustle culture. Let's stop glorifying working 60 hours a week. Okay? How about let's glorify dancing around a fire naked and howling at the fucking moon? Let's glorify that. It's like, I don't know, some people wear their suffering like a badge of honor. Let's stop doing that. It's not cool to suffer. You don't get a reward for that. How about let's glorify comfort? Let's glorify ease. Let's glorify joy, you know? Um I think that everyone could, you know, benefit from a little glorification of ease. You know, just take a day to be a little garden nymph, you know? Go hang out in the fucking grass and just sketch all day, you know? Just be a little fucking fairy, okay? That's your homework for this week. Go out and be a fucking fairy, okay? Oh man, that was a tough one today, guys. I was yapping. But I said some shit, didn't I? I said some shit. Well, I hope that you can take all of this and, you know, kind of try to apply it to yourself, you know. And if you knew all of this already, then that's great. I'm really happy. I just hope that I can provide maybe like an additional perspective or, you know, an alternate perspective or, you know, just a different way of seeing things, which is all means the same thing. Whatever, Nova. Anyway, um obviously take everything I said with a grain of salt because I'm not a professional. I'm simply a cam girl navigating this crazy, crazy world. Um, but I like to say that I do so in the healthiest way possible for me. So, anyway, onto the cum counter. So I decided that instead of doing, you know, like telling you each day, I'm just gonna do a weekly tally. That shit was so lame last week. So, but first, my random orgasm slash sex slash masturbation fact because I'm doing a fact every week. Okay. So back in the day, obviously masturbation was taboo. It was looked down upon. So there was a doctor, Dr. John Harvey Kellogg. He believed that a bland diet might curb sexual desire and therefore maybe eliminate masturbation. Therefore, he invented cornflakes. He invented cornflakes to make people fuck less, make people touch their wee-wees a couple less times throughout the day. I don't know. It didn't work for me though, because I came 17 times this week. Maybe if I was eating my cornflakes, I wouldn't have masturbated so many times, but I had no cornflakes this week. So yeah, 17 times. And my highest day was 5 in one day on Thursday, the day that last week was posted. So yeah, it's been a week. I got my numbers up. I told you that I could get my numbers up, and I did. So I want everyone to kind of take that energy of, you know, saying they're gonna do something and following through with it. Anyway, I love you all so much. Thank you all so much for listening every single week, even though this is only the third week. You are all the reason that I keep going and that I keep doing this and that I continue down this path of righteousness. Anyway, stay good and I'll see you next week. Bye.